And sorry, apologies for the slight delay in starting. Welcome to Startup Buzz. This is CII's weekly format, almost like a talk show with where we chat with startup founders like Ajay. It happens every Thursday at 5 o'clock, and it's got everything to do with startups. So, we'll have conversations with founders, like I said, and sometimes we also have masterclasses. We've had a masterclass on finance, and we've had a masterclass on shareholder agreements. This is a format that has begun from May this year, and it's gathered a lot of momentum, and it's been very useful to the startup community. So, without further ado, I'd like to welcome Ajay Thandi, the founder of Sleepy Owl Coffee. And, participants are welcome to post their questions on the chat, and the CI moderator will put them up on the chat in front of me, and then we'll have a look at those, and then I can ask Ajay some of those questions as well. And if you also want to put in what is your favorite brewing method for coffee, whether it's South Indian filter coffee, a French press, a mocha pot, or a cappuccino or espresso, please also let us know, and then let's see if we can have a poll on that as well. So maybe in this, Ajay, while sharing us, can also do some market research and get some tips on this also. All right. Thanks, Ajay. Welcome to Startup Buzz. We've had a conversation yesterday. I hope you're feeling a lot better. I know Delhi is not good for people's health, but thank you for taking the time to be with us. Uh, Probably best, let's start off with something that all startup founders need to know. What's your 2-minute elevator pitch for your company and for Sleepy Owl? So we can set the context, and then we can go deeper into your journey within your company. Yeah, Jay, you're on mute.
Arjun, thank you so much for having me here. Great opportunity to share my journey with you guys and everyone who's on this call today. Uh, First and foremost, Sleepy Owl is uh, our my baby in essence. I've spent last 9 years building this. So my pitch is very simple. We are India's new age coffee company. We make coffee and coffee products in the FMCG space. We started our company in 2016, where we saw this huge gap when it came to consumer offerings for coffee and coffee related products for the new age consumer in the country. And we felt that India was at an inflection point of coffee consumption. And while there was, a lot of opportunity out of home, not much innovation was happening at home, where one or two companies dominated the shelves in kitchens for consumers' homes. So we felt that that could be a very good space to interact with consumers and give them great products that can essentially help make India a coffee drinking nation. So we've been on that mission for the last 9 years. Started with cold brew coffee, very innovative, unique way of consuming coffee, and then launched into different variants over the years, one step at a time. Today, we have a portfolio of products that covers ready to drink, instant coffee, roast and ground coffee, cold brew, hot brew, and equipment that's needed to have a good cup at home. So we want to be the first interaction you have in your kitchen in the morning should be Sleepy Owl. That's our goal. So our mission is very simple. Simply great coffee, right? Like no ifs and buts, no complication. Just simplify it for a consumer. Make it convenient for them to have when they wake up. Your cup of joe on the go, right? So that's who we are.
All right, thanks, Ajay. And I think also to give some perspective on the company, could you probably just highlight a few of the key, like, larger metrics that you would like usually you would judge a company by, in terms of when did you get in your capital, how is it funded, some of those details. You don't have to give exact numbers, ranges are fine, and or
Yeah.
general concepts are at least good, so that we, again, like, the participants get the context.
Okay. So we're a venture funded company. We are very lucky that very early on in our journey, one of the leading consumer funds, early stage consumer funds, backed us DSG Consumer, who've backed the likes of Viva, Epigamia Yogurt in our category. Uh, till date, we've raised about $10 million from over the course of many rounds. In terms of our major metrics that we look at ourselves at, like first and foremost, we're from a top line perspective, we're a 100 crore revenue company. We are profitable both on a we've been profitable on a EBITDA level for almost 12-18 months. Last month we were PAT positive for the first time. So that's a long journey ahead of us where we want to be a profitable company. Uh, and then from a product perspective, we are obviously a new age company that sells to consumers in the new age way, and our GTM has primarily been online, and that's where we continue to get 70% of our revenue through digital channels. Most of those channels we are, in terms of market share within the categories that we operate in, we're a number one or a number two player. And then we also have offline presence in terms of retail supermarkets or GT stores through which we sell our products. So we're currently present in three areas when it comes to GT: Mumbai, Maharashtra, and Pune, Delhi NCR, and Punjab. And all these three markets are where we sell our products in about 7,000-8,000 retail stores.
All right. Thanks, Ajay. So, yesterday you and me had a brief conversation
Yeah,
about your journey, and we discussed, especially with regard to your business, you started in 2016, you mentioned. So that's almost a decade is coming in.
yeah,
And so that's quite a that's actually quite a long, I mean, that's a long stint. It's not a, you might not be probably at the century stage as yet, but you're definitely in your 90s, right?
yeah,
So,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
and see, during this point, lots of things change, companies pivot, but fundamentally also at a personal level, there have been inflection points,
Yeah.
and you mentioned that the first inflection points, and we'll go through the three of them. You said the first inflection point was when you came back to India from the US. So can you just tell us, the origin story of Ajay? What were you doing in the US and what drove you to come back?
So I grew up you know, in Chandigarh. That's where I'm from. Dad was in the army. Uh, Very different non-business life. Service background is what we had. We had a great life. Life was all about activities and sports and leading a well-rounded life and not just pursuit of one thing or the other. Uh, and then because army makes you move a lot, my parents shipped me to boarding school when I was very young. So I left home at the age of 10, and have been pretty much independent since then. For uni, I went to US, to USC, University of Southern California. There, it was an eye opener because America is a great equalizer. If you go and study there, especially from an academic perspective, it's highly meritocratic. Doesn't and your the rigor of academics is very intense in terms of weekly assessment rather than Indian style. You can chill all year long and then go and mug up and give an exam. So it makes you really, really grind hard if you want to. Uh, but like most of the kids around me, especially the guys from India, were from like established business houses, right? Most of them had family businesses to fall back on. So they were all uh, having a great time. So was I in the beginning. And then I thought about it. I said, I have nothing to do after this. I'm not joining the army. Dad is retiring. Uh, I got to make something of my life. I have to really work hard, and I have to kind of not be lost after 4 years, and then figure out what I need to. So pretty much in the first semester, I figured out that uh, you know getting a job and being very serious in academics, along with a well balanced life, social life, will be very important, and I prioritized that. Worked super hard. Uh, Finance, economics was something I was naturally very aligned towards. And then for me, life has always been, because it's not that I had great mentorship from, like, people who've done very well in business or those type of lives. Like, army is very different. People you look up to. Life is more about character and making of a man,
Mm.
rather than, these are just stepping stones to success. So I just looked up, like, people 2 or 3 years ahead of me who I thought were doing something. I could be inspired by them, and I just followed their path and figured out that, the best of the lot got into banking, the second got into consulting out of undergrad, third got into, big four. So I said, let's try for banking, IB, investment banking, and let's go for uh, a bulge bracket bank. Got pretty lucky, like, got into JP Morgan right out of undergrad. Wall Street was my first job, and worked really, really hard to get there. When I got there, it was a bit of a, you know, ivory tower situation. Like, from the outside, you felt that, okay, this is it. I've made it to Wall Street, and you've seen all these movies and super glorified. But a year into that job, I started looking around me and looking at people like MDs, people who were career bankers, and they were, in my view, one of the most miserable people I've seen. And I said, this is not what I want my life to be. 10 years, 20 years later, like, no family life, no balance. They make a lot of money, but that is it, right? I started really thinking, and the career path in banking is very cyclical. Once you break in, it's like 2 years you do IB, and you get into private equity for a couple of years. You go do an MBA, and you're back at that job. So it's that cycle, and then your career is kind of spent in the financial services. So I had this, you know, always had this hunger in me to wanted to understand not just like how business runs on a spreadsheet. We were capital movers, allocators of capital in at JP Morgan, taking billion-dollar companies public. But when we were on these road shows, I was meeting these entrepreneurs. I was more interested in, okay, how do you actually make money? Like, how do those guys go from zero to one? And got me very excited. And I felt that, okay, at some point in my life I will do that. I'll do something, sprout out, do something of my own. And I realized that, coming from the background that I did, that more time I spend, the golden handcuffs would make it very, very hard for me to leave that life. Right, you're getting like 7, 10 years into banking, you make $1 million, right? It's very hard to leave that, especially when you don't have an equal opportunity. So 2 years in, sitting for private equity interviews, I decided that I'm not going to do that. I said that, and at that time, India was just opening up, right? Prime Minister Modi had gotten elected. He came to US to Madison Square Garden. It was like this sold out show. It was all about come back to India, do something. And I felt, and at that time, I'd also seen these great success stories in US in consumer brands. Dollar Shave Club being one of them that I saw. And I said, okay, I don't have a tech background, but I understand consumer, I understand finance. Let me go back home, because we are 10, 15 years behind US, where in terms of, they're also dominated by big food, but new age consumers are adopting new age brands, and maybe there's a shot there. And with that, uh, I just picked up and decided I'll move back home, and with not really an idea, but I said I will do it. And I said, worst comes to worst, it will, if I fail miserably, it'll make a great story on an essay to an MBA, and I can start over. So that was the mindset, like nothing really planned out, to be honest with you. So great inflection point, obviously, coming back, but the way I saw it, it was absolutely a win-win for me. Like, there was no downside, had it covered.
So, when you started your business, what
Yeah.
did you see in India that others missed?
I think what others missed at that time, most of the time, I just decided to take a shot and leave that life of comfort, and had grit and resilience that I'll figure it out. I think a lot of time people are afraid to take that first step. They talk too much, they over analyze, over complicate. uh, it is about taking that first step and just saying that, what, like, let me just start, see where it is, one step at a time, I'll solve problems. And that's how I've looked at life, always from a very first principle basis. No matter how complicated things are, I'll break it down, whether it's my fitness journey or my health journey or anything else. Break it down, let's go to basic, let's take that one incremental step. And I think that first step, that, okay, you know what, I'm going to move into a apartment in Dwarka, which is I've never been to in my life, with my friend, and set up a cottage industry brewing in the second room, and see how where it takes us, and call people and harass all my friends who are working jobs that come try this coffee. Like, it was just that anyone and everyone who gave us the opportunity, we used to take our bags, take our coffee brewing equipment, set up stalls and serve coffee, and that's what it was. It was a lot of fun, to be honest with you. Like, so it was just that, like, in the early days.
Okay. So, look, you know, when 0 to 1 is probably the most difficult journey.
Yeah,
Uh, 1 to 100 is also difficult and has its own challenges, but 0 to 1 is really, really excruciatingly difficult, you know,
yeah,
and it's that's really where you get the first real painful point. So take us through that. Your first 100 customers, you know,
yeah,
and that's really where a lot of mistakes get made. There are expectations and things that you say, oh, this should work, but it doesn't really work.
yeah.
So what did you do that did not scale?
I think everything we did in the 0 to 1 did not scale for the first 5 years, to be honest with you. But one thing we had is absolute amount of grit and resilience, and that never given attitude. So, like, I mean, me and my co-founders, those two guys are lawyers. I was a banker, right? Like, no experience or understanding of how an FMCG company works or what FMCG stands for. Also, we made our first product called Cold Brew Box, which was, in my view, still one of the best products we had, that established our brand for what it is. But it was just a absolute blunder in terms of principle of doing business, because that product was 1.5 liters of liquid, which had to be cold, refrigerated, had to be cold chain supplied, and had a shelf life of 30 days. So those are, if you go to anyone doing anything FMCG, they'll say this is the stupidest thing you can ever do. So hubris of youth, and just that, you know what, we will do it attitude. Let's listen to the customer. Customers loved it, like in Delhi NCR, but we could not scale beyond that city at all.
Mm,
So it was just that first 100 customers were like our best friends, because we used to go hand deliver to that box. We used to brew in that apartment, pack it, go deliver it to their homes in a metro or car or whatever else we could find a way to reach them. And the product was always first for us. Like, every time any decision we made was always product first. Hence, we've always had a brand which is way larger than our business size or revenue or scale, because we put so much love and care and into every aspect of the product, whether it's packaging, whether the taste or the quality or the ingredients, and we never compromised on that. The challenge of that was that we scaled very, very slowly, and it was just like figuring out our product market fit for the first 4 5 years, and one step at a time. Okay, this iteration doesn't work, let's try, liquid doesn't work, let's do DIY. Consumers will brew it at, went against all consumer best practices, consulting theories that are out there. But it was more about naivety. We didn't know any better. I won't do it
mm.
again. Now our product cycles are very, very thought out and different. And but at that time, there was advantage of youth and inexperience at our side that allowed us to do things which were truly passionate and from love.
Yeah, so Ajay, you know, when you say a few things, let me take the liberty of also extrapolating some lessons that I also get from what you're saying and then put it out across there. But you know, you mentioned right in the beginning, one of the things that you said is we want to make great products, you know,
Yeah,
great coffee. And today, you just now in your last answer, you said you used the two words love and care.
yeah,
You know, these are very non-business school terminologies.
yeah,
You know, for great products, you have quality control. Instead of love and care, you have drive and ambition, which are also, I think, more human qualities, I would say. But these are you don't learn about love and care in business school, right?
yeah,
Um, but I think that's really what separates a lot of the very best entrepreneurs from the rest, is the dedication and commitment that they have, it's at the end of the day a human endeavor.
Yeah,
And we'll come to that because, we spoke about the issue of work-life balance and how do you maintain it and whether there is anything like work-life balance or and essentially the big advantage of having being an entrepreneur and a founder especially is that you're able to bring your full self to work and
yeah.
you're full every day and that itself is quite a privilege. So okay, look, okay, look, to put the coffee terminology, the grounds were set. Okay, you started the business in 2016. You scaled up, like you said, extremely slowly over the first 5 years. But then the world shut down,
Yeah,
and we come to the second inflection point, which is COVID.
yeah.
So, what went on in your mind? What broke first? Supply chain, working capital, team routines.
So for
Uh,
us, to be honest, COVID was a boon and a bust. Boon in the beginning, bust in the later fag end of it. Why was it a boon? Because we were a digital first company. Like all the products we made, they were first of their kind, new to category. And uh, in FMCG speak, especially when, in a world where there was no quick commerce, no digital commerce, no D2C, nothing. It was just selling a product wherever you can, and ideally in a retail store because that's where grocery sells. It was very tough because we would had these amazing products. They would go on the shelf, but no one would pick it up because no one knew what it was. Uh, and then we were forced to build a digital, you know, channel to sell our products, and D2C happened, website basically, where we could educate consumers about the brand, about the product, why they should consume it. And that was very early days. Shopify entered India in 2017. Amazon got itself very serious in 17. So we were right there and then with those guys as they were making those mistakes in terms of setting up digital supply chains. We were part of that. So what happened in COVID when things shut down? We were lucky because just I would say 2 months before COVID, we raised a round, so we had money in the bank, uh, and then everything came to a standstill. We had largely a D2C business and a little bit of Amazon business, and that's it. And because grocery food items, if you know, till 2022 were not scalable in India beyond a few brands, because there was both website and Amazon and Flipkarts of the world are not uh, suited to scaling food businesses, because food businesses by nature are low AOV and low gross margin, right? So that was a perennial challenge we were always facing in terms of scaling up. uh, but suddenly everything shut down, and guess what? Everyone had to go online to buy coffee and everything. And we just, by luck, for last 3 4 years, all we had done is perfect a shipping experience for a consumer. So first 6 months was like tough from our perspective, that we just had to. There was more than enough demand. We just had to supply the product. And when we ran out of, because we were so young and small, like if we ran out of packaging material, we would write notes. Customers understood that, hey, I just care about my coffee. I don't care if you have the wrong labeled product out there. Write a nice note. So brand love got built in those times. CACs were super super cheap, so it was like the golden era of any e-commerce company. Now, if we were a different category, like a personal care or something, things would have blown up a lot more, because by nature those categories are that. But for grocery, we did fairly well. For the first year, and then suddenly it became very 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 unsustainable, because the whole world started advertising and coming online. Like that was the thing. CACs went through the roof, and our business, which is already a low GM and a low AOV business, became unsustainable, especially on D2C. And that was uh, almost 60% of our top line. And we had to take a very conscious call that, this is just not sustainable at all. uh, because I mean, for every dollar we were burning, maybe to get that revenue. And we said that it's just not sustainable. We have to figure something else out, and we need to kind of change our channel strategy. And this is like 6 years in the business, and you've set up one way of doing things. Your DNA is very digital, D2C. You understand that customer, your whole product and supply chain. And you think that, okay, so transitioning that from a D2C life to a completely omni-channel world was the biggest learning lesson that we ever experienced, and we suffered massive amount of pain and for those 2 years of that transition at the end of COVID, so 22, 23, when we transitioned, when going from online to offline, we were very aggressive in the beginning, where we thought that, you know what, we were doing so well online that revenue would automatically translate. Completely different channel, completely different customer profile, completely different product profile is needed for that. And we learned it the hard way. Very hard lessons learned. Uh, but today, only thing is we're lucky that we're alive to tell that story, and I can say it in a good way, and there's a happy ending to it. But at that time, going through it was just painful. There was no end in sight.
So, and so what is it, COVID, of course, was essentially great because you had demand. People wanted, now their own coffees, so
Yeah,
they wanted brands that they could rely on, and once they liked it, they would keep coming back. It became like a rather than going to different cafes.
yeah.
So it would be good for sleepy owl. But what's the one thing or the two things that you did that freed up growth? You grew in COVID, but what you must have done something that freed it up. Did you kill something or did you nurture something?
I think there's nothing one thing. It's just it's a function of right inputs taken over the last 4 5 years, and those things just
Mm.
compounded in this black swan event, right? In essence, so there is no, like, I think, right from product first approach, building beautiful packaging that was easy to ship. Uh, your product archetype is easy to communicate and for consumers to understand. Uh, Being challenged by physical retail and saying, okay, you know what, we'll make a digital first GTM for our product. So all those right decisions kind of compounded and helped us to maximize when that event happened. We were just there to,
Yeah.
maximize growth. Nothing I can point to one particular thing at that point.
So, okay, and by this time, how much, before we come to the third inflection point, I wanted to talk, how much capital had you raised? And did you raise anything during COVID, those years?
So we raised our in that upswing of COVID, basically when we did really well and business revenue scale like 4x in 12 months. We raised a big round, and that was, I would say, the last big round we raised in 2021, about $6.5 million.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, that's very significant considering a total of $10 million has been raised. So,
yeah,
um, okay. And then, of course, then came the winter that no one ordered, which
yeah,
is the funding winter of
yeah.
23, 24. Always fascinating to hear from founders. What is your perspective of what led to this? And how did you become default resilient? Sorry.
So what led to it is, the hubris of 2021, like obscene valuations given to companies on no fundamental sense of business and what it was and all, in future that the COVID normal is going to be the new normal and world will never return to what it used to be. Uh, and businesses got across the board overcapitalized and overvalued. After that, suddenly there was great disruption, starting with a couple of events. One was Facebook in 2022 changed its algorithm, where it's publicly listed information as well. They lost $10 billion in one quarter of first quarter of 2022. That led to massive supply chain constraints, which led to globally chip shortage, everything, war in Russia, like 5 6 things happened together in a 3 4 month period. Commodity prices went through the roof because of the US. You know, when they funded the whole, like, $6 trillion of free money came into the system. So obviously led to extreme inflation and commodity prices across the board. So the whole business model of on which things would operate kind of became unsustainable, and suddenly the investors woke up in 2022, led by globally. and said that now it's not revenue at any cost. Let's become profitable overnight. And if you're not profitable and if you don't have growth, you're going to be unfundable. And pre that, I will tell you, like 2016 onwards, when we started our business, and if you had great product, good fundamentals, good team, the right governance and sort of things, like, and consumers like what you were doing, you were on a steady growth path. The way we were brought up as entrepreneurs, and a lot of entrepreneurs of that generation, our first generation, were on principles of revenue at any cost, just continue to scale, raise capital for burn money. That's just the fundamental. And it's 18-month cycle. You're on that cycle, rinse, repeat. And suddenly in 2022, you're told that overnight that doesn't apply anymore. Go back to basics. So first and foremost, a lot of companies have struggled after that, and you've seen billion-dollar companies who've gone down and all that, and smaller companies, all that, because I think what most founders did not take it seriously and thought that, what, this is a passing phase, these guys will change. But the writing was on the wall. US public markets, all the startups that went public were destroyed by public market investors. And so it all trickles down, right? Like from public market comes to series, late stage, growth stage, early stage. So it trickled all the way down to seed stage, which became the reality. And that was it. So the most important thing at that point was survival. We and we thought about it for 6 months, and we are at that point as it is going through this transition that I told you about, where we realized our main channel of revenue, which is basically 50-60% of our revenue, no longer is sustainable, and we can continue to push that can down the road or take that hard call. And if it comes to hard call, we're staring at a overall revenue loss, and market is horrible, and basically no one's going to touch you. So that was the reality. And honestly, the truth was that we had very good investors, DSG, who have been super patient in terms of truly founders first and patient capital, because they build consumer businesses, they don't build tech businesses. Problem is when tech venture capitalists become consumer venture capitalists, it's very difficult to transition because both those companies operate very, very differently. So these guys were sane enough to give sage advice that, guys, get the fundamentals in order. And we also took a very hard look at our business and looked at what we had, and we said that, what works is that consumer love is very strong. What works is that people love our products, talk about it very highly. What we screwed up is, like, we don't have the right GTM and channel product mix. Our product market fit for the right channel is not there, and we need to, based on that big fundraise that we raised, where we overcapitalized our business at an overvaluation, we need to adjust to it. And there's no ego. You can either kick the can down the road and do death by 1,000 cuts, or rip the bandit off and take the punches in that moment. Once you know the truth was there. So we took the hard call. Most people did not, and they continue to suffer as a result of it today. We took the hard call and went through, I mean, the worst phase of our company's life, and personal also, which is attached to it, for those 12, 18 months, where we had to, let go of 50-60% of people, pull back from markets which were not profitable, basically restart our business from scratch, in essence, right? Rebuild it from zero, like go back to basics and figure every line item out and build that PNL, how we're going to build it into a profitable large company. Because the truth was that what happened, and I look at funding winter as, like, or that time, as one of the best things that ever happened for me personally and our business, where we realized that we have to build a business which is not dependent on financial capital coming to rescue us every 18 months. We have to hold purpose of business is profit, and we have to build a sustainable, self-sustainable business on our own accord. No one's going to come save us. No one cares if we spend 6-7 years of our prime youth and life and how honest we are about our work and how diligent we are. No one will care. It'll be maybe a story for 10 seconds and people will move on, but we will suffer. So we need to take that control of our destiny and really, really fix this if we want to long term be in this. So that was the whole long short of that experience. and took that hard call, and took us, I would say, 6 8 months to, or 2 quarters to restructure things, where we had 2 months of zero revenue in essence, that like we were not like producing anything or selling. There was more than enough inventory to be sold on its own. So and we took those conscious calls where there was inventory stuck in wrong channels. We had to pull that back. So a lot of like restructuring had to be done, but we knew fundamentally what we are doing is the right inputs, and it is going to pay its dividend, and it did. If I look at 20 FY22, we were, you know, 28 crores of top line and 22 crores of loss. FY23, we did 20, we dropped our revenue from 28 to 22 crores. We had a drop in revenue because, like I said, 2 quarters, almost no billing. Loss was almost 12 crores, half the loss. Uh, and then, but every quarter things were getting better and better. And last year we did 50 crores top line and maybe 2 or 5 crores of loss. And this year we'll do almost 100 with break even balance, bottom line. So needed to do those, go through that pain and that valley of death to truly survive and reach where we are today.
So, I'm just mindful of the time here, and we have quite a lot of questions that have come in. I'm just going to segment some of these questions, but maybe when we talk about the funding winter, of course, we're talking about capital. So let's talk a little bit more about capital, but along with the capital, governance as well. You spoke about, DSG being a very important investor in your business. They are a very well-known fund in the consumer sector. And also, they've got a fantastic track record behind them. When the institutional money came in,
Yeah.
because like you said, you were doing it out of an apartment in Dwarka. This When the institutional money came in, what changed the day after the money hit?
You know what happens when the day money, I don't know, like if anyone who's gone through fundraising, in startups, fundraising is like a grueling 9 months process, right? From pitch to like DD, all that stuff. By the time it comes in, you're so frustrated and tired, you don't even realize. You're like, man, I just want life to resume normally. The excitement or any nothing like that happens. But I would say, because our first check, we never had angel money. We only had straight up institution capital that came in. What good that came in from day one, very high on compliance, very high on processes, right way of doing things. So I've always slept easy at night. I've never had any issue that is this thing correct, not like we are super, super honest and compliant. And like that's the like all the screw ups in business are our own doing. We'll have a wrong way of philosophy of like let's go aggressive, or right wrong way of operating things, but never and ever a compliance issue. And I think that is a very strong lesson we learned early on. And second thing comes from our own self, that we treat our investors, especially once they come on board, as partners in the business. So good news, bad news, they're the first ones to know always. So there is like, and because we treat them that, okay, if we're going to succeed, you come on the journey, but when I'm suffering, you're with me also in it. So being, I think, ultra honest and transparent with your investors is, I believe, one of the most important things, any lesson that anyone can take. And true, it shows metal of the investor as well. It's not how he is in up rounds and how things are going good and how things are rosy, but how he acts and how his character is when chips are down. And does he back you? Does he give you sage advice? Is he the right person? That shows character of a man and character of an investor. So lucky to have that, learned that, and if I ever get an opportunity to be that in someone else's life, that is what I will bring to the table as well.
Okay, and okay, from the other side, when you ran the process, what's your advice to other startups, founders, on how do you court investors? What is the best way to run the process? You said it's it's frustrating. You start with a large degree of optimism. You
Yeah,
go through all sorts. You start questioning yourself through the process very often.
yeah.
Um, but how do you court invest? How would you recommend? What's your advice and what the lessons that you've learned in courting investors and how do you run a process?
Yeah, see, I mean, quoting investors like dating, right? Not every girl will say yes to you, or might not. Like you have to go through the journey to find your wife, right? So don't be disheartened by it. There will be some one-sided love. There will be some that they're hitting on you and you don't want to. So that's just part of the fun. But going back, like I think a lot of times people spend too much time on making things perfect for the investor, and I think it's a very wrong philosophy. It's the same way in dating. Like I would advise if there's a guy, my young brother or cousin asks me like, how do I do it? I will tell him, be yourself, be honest, because your true self will reveal itself one day, and then you will be stuck in a bad marriage. So just same way to with an investor, always be yourself. Don't build a business for an investor because then either you'll get tired or he will, or he'll question you that, hey, you misled me. So be yourself, have strong business, have a strong product that you're passionate about, and eventually you will find someone who will agree with your vision, and that's what you want to be, to come and participate in that journey. And yes, like of course it's a law of averages. You'll talk to 40 people, 50 people, you will get 40 rejections, but that's life of a founder. Like you wake up, I wake up like morning to evening. My 60% of my time, 70% time is firefighting. Like every issue from, you know, admin related issue in an office to some hiring, firing, blah, 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 like fight with a vendor. Like that is all you do. And that is life of, like, you chose to be a founder. So there's no pity party really coming into it. Life of law of averages will apply and you'll find the right person. But be yourself, be honest, confident in your business, take feedback very, very well, be open to feedback. And that's how it is. Like there's nothing really too much to it. And to be honest with you, the more you focus on your business, the stronger it is. Money is out there. Like capital is not the problem, to be honest with you. In India, especially, or anywhere in the world, it is great entrepreneurs and great businesses. Capital chases that. You can't
Yeah.
chase capital, run away from it. So like that's like the philosophy and mind with which I work. And I think that's the successful people who've raised a lot of rounds also operate in this similar framework.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things. I think a lot of founders really underestimate um, how much the world and particularly capital needs good people running the business.
Yeah,
And it's a rare thing to find. And I think if you have conviction in what you're doing and how you're doing it, and you're doing it properly with the right reasons and the right method, uh, the universe will come and take care of you.
yeah,
You will get that capital. So,
yeah.
yeah, but I do think I do see a lot of founders. They don't have that belief that the world needs them, but
Yeah,
actually the world does need them. So,
and focus
um,
on your customers. To be honest with you, that's the guy who's paying you eventually. Like
yeah,
everything else doesn't matter in that
yeah.
like journey at all.
Yeah, it is the most important thing, I think, from a governance perspective, focus on your customers. Just on your on the board of your company, do you have people who are not part of the
No,
co-founding team?
very, very no. One, we have our investors are there and my co-founders.
So okay, so how do you use your board during the meetings? I think is a very important point because um, it's extremely important for people running the companies to
Yeah,
use their boards properly. The board is not just to sign off, but how do you use your boards during the meetings and also between the meetings? Because, of course, if the
I think I
institutional
use them a
investors
lot
there.
more. For me, see, I think that's a journey I have to also go on. Uh, as an early stage company, at the young stage company, I use my board mostly not during meetings. It's like an hour ago, I had a call with Hari. I'll speak to him every like week. If Hari is DSG
Yeah.
India MD, uh, whenever and if there's any, or Rukun Capital guys, I will talk to them anytime from compliance issue. Okay, this is the business, this is the update, this is what we're thinking, this is where we stuck. Help us here, help us there. What do you think of this? Board meetings at our stage right now are more of compliance rather than other than the annual ones where we're trying to get everyone together to approve certain AOPs or QOPs or big decisions. But I think as the companies go larger, maybe, and boards go larger, maybe those meetings become way more foundational, and we're excited for that journey when it comes our way.
Yeah, and okay, so let's talk a little bit about culture, organization culture
Yeah.
also. And what is the hardest call that you've had to make uh, in the last, let's say, 24 months?
I think letting go of people is the hardest call. Hard, definitely, because when you recruit them, you show them a life. Their families depend on it. They come on board. They're passionate. They're excited. And layoffs for no fault of their, because fundamentally you did mistakes were made or business did not go in the right direction. I believe that has been the toughest call I've ever had to take. Other than that, I think those, like, yes, like you know D2C writing is on the wall, like any, you know like, when fundamentals of the business do not make sense. Okay, this is not a channel we're going to push. And for, if you have the right way of looking at business and you put fundamentals first, a lot of decision making becomes pretty easy, right? Like you have guardrails. This is the operating uh, margins that we are going to operate at. If it doesn't make sense, we are not going to launch these products. I think if you establish a culture of profitability, establish a profit of capital efficiency, a lot of day-to-day decisions take care of themselves. So there isn't really. So establishing that in your culture and getting every member of the team, whether it's finance, operations, sales, marketing, to understand that, okay, this is the need of the business. This is why we are coming to our work every day to build a sustainable company, not just, you know, an experiment, and imbibing that in every member of the team. That is very, very important. Culture shows, it's founders in early stage company, it's driven from top, right? And I I believe absolutely in transparency, like with the team as well. So when we were going through our worst times, everything was public. In every town hall, we shared our data with every team member, like sales metrics, where we are at, and believing that people will be honest and not go and leak it to anyone. And even if they do, honestly, I've reached that stage of maturity that by the time someone else finds out, we're already like ahead of where we were. And secondly, that's not my problem. It's the person's ethics, and they have to deal with that karma themselves. I'm
Mm.
not going to change that because of one or two people. So I think transparency, honesty, being leading people, being very clear in your communication, uh, showing up, being the hardest worker in the room, and like those things matter, and it translates across the company as well.
So I think let's just, I just want to ask you a little bit on the layoffs because we understand the layoff process itself is extremely difficult. When you're
Yeah,
dealing
yeah,
with someone, you have to be clear with them, you have to be compassionate. You're going through an issue because of funding. So and severance becomes sometimes very difficult for the company,
yeah.
but you have to do that. Um, but there is the element of layoff which happens for the people who are not laid off. It affects them too,
Oh,
you know.
100%. Really bad.
And
Yeah.
I think so. How do you restore momentum and a feeling of security to some degree
I
for
think,
the team that stays?
see, I'll tell you this. Once that happens, reality is that it breaks the morale of your people for maybe 2 quarters minimum, maybe three. Uh, so as a founder, man, like you go through pain, like absolute pain. There are days you're in darkness, you don't want to show up. And those are the
Yeah.
moments you show up and you put your best foot forward. You don't feel like
Mm,
standing in front of the company in your monthly town hall and addressing another month of down revenue, more
mm,
losses piling up, and again and again and again, and giving that hope that, guys, we. But I think you have to stick to that, because there will be that one day that, okay, you know what, we're seeing this one green shoot come up and people will believe. It takes time. It's like grief, right? People take time to come through it. And to be honest with you, nothing beats or lifts morale like growth. And eventually giving an honest, if you're honest and say 2, 6, 7, 8 months later, they see, okay, this is what he
Yeah.
said, and that is happening, people suddenly change.
Mm.
And that's the way to it. Like, I think if you're doing it very, very objectively, and that's where a time we also became better managers of people. We really did not have that experience where we realized that being very clear with team, because we went from like this, motley crew of people that everyone does everything, to now where it is, this is what your expectations are, this is how I like to lead, these are my deliverables, this is what I will be judging you on, and being very, very methodical about the process makes, even if you're doing sin off cycle, letting go of someone in the future, it's never that out of it came out of nowhere, right? Like, so I think that was one learning process. And that, like, again, you have to be honest with your team always, right? Like, they are there every day, and the truth is they know.
Yeah.
It's
So
not that
so
they
the
know. So
yeah.
be honest, like, with them all, with everything, and they will take it. Like, that's being adult about it.
Yeah, I mean, I think just I've heard honesty, love, care,
Yeah,
and it's very consistent across your answers, whether you're dealing with the clients, whether you're dealing with your investors, or you're dealing with the people. So, I think it's something that is extremely important because really you're bringing your full self to work over there.
yeah,
But okay, so from employees, I want to shift to mentors,
yeah.
and give me an example. Okay, give us an example of someone who told you a truth that you didn't want to hear.
So many people have told me the truth. Like, I mean, like, when we were going through like this tough time, and we had to go and like, we knew that things are not working out, we have to change. So what we started doing is that in town halls, I started calling successful consumer brand entrepreneurs who I knew are doing very well, to our town halls to come Q&A, talk to the team, tell them their experiences, businesses, how they built. And a lot of time, like, I would go down after the meeting, guys, this is the problem. Layoff was one of them. I was delaying it because, like, man, I want to save the, like, that decision is something I don't want to deal with. And the reality was that, man, rip that bandit off, because it will become worse for the business. And you have to,
Mm,
your fiduciary duty as the leader of the company, your funded company, is to
mm,
the business, and fiduciary responsibility to is to make sure that survival of business is utmost, right?
yeah.
So you have to take that tough call. Do not delay it. And that was one. I was hoping things will turn around. Let's try one more quarter. And sometimes it just doesn't happen. Like, you have to put your foot down. Then,
But it's very this is one of the things like when you have a founder like yourself who's so passionate about the work,
yeah,
uh, does a lot from the heart. You sometimes need a mentor who
yeah,
actually talks from the head,
yeah,
So you work with love, you work with care, but
yeah,
you need somebody to talk to you and
no,
tell you about your fiduciary duty. Those
yeah,
terms don't,
yeah,
a
yeah, yeah,
fiduciary duty term is not something that comes from, that's not
yeah.
your vocabulary.
And
It's,
see, I will tell you this. I'm pretty much like very from the head type of person in the organization as well. I'm very fun because I come from a finance background, right?
yeah,
That's how I was trained and, like, chopped my knives in the early days of my life and career. But sometimes when you are in the situation, you can't get out and see, like, what the jungle looks like. You're just stuck in the woods, right? So it's
yeah.
always good to have uh, mentors or people point you to the right direction. Uh, you know, going like, so the good thing about the ecosystem, especially early stage founder ecosystem across the board, whether they're publicly listed founders or new age guys, man, they are absolutely the good guy, and mostly they are very, very open and transparent about sharing lessons and war
Mm,
stories and what to do and what not to do. And always those chats have been, I remember being down and out and going to one guy who runs one of the most successful quick commerce company right now. And he'd been through hell and back, and, like, he spent like 4 hours with me and my co-founders and just guiding us on certain things, what matters, why are we doing it, asked question, why are you even doing this? And waking up to realities of that, uh, those conversations can be enough motivation for the next 12 months, right? So
mm,
very lucky to have a very strong ecosystem of good
yeah.
founders.
So just mindful of time, we've reached 6 o'clock. I think there are a lot of questions that have come. I think you've covered a lot of them. I'm sorry I could not really delve too deeply into distribution, but Ajay did speak about how he was and the benefits of being an online first brand. Of course, we can't look at the markets and your global expansion, but considering the time that we just a little bit, maybe we just end on a few rapid fire questions, Ajay. So, like I said, rapid fire, just very, very quick answers, one word, one phrase. Let us know what your thoughts are. So, one investor red flag that you have, a red flag when you look at an investor that you just will never touch him.
Uh, I think someone who has anyone who screwed over founders because for
So you do
whatever
a reference
for the,
check and check, yeah.
yeah, if they have, they've not been founder supportive like 100% because man, it's such a hard journey. Like it's lonely, hard, tough, and you grind it out like hours and hours into 80, 50, 100 hours for years with nothing. And
Okay.
all you need is someone to support you. So someone, if someone has thrown you and is known to do that, I would kind of stay away from that.
Okay. One metric you check every week religiously.
Secondary sales and contribution margin.
All right. Um, the worst advice that you ignored.
Well, we were down and out, like going through tough times, and obviously, like things were taking time to scale. People felt that maybe coffee products is the issue and category is an issue. So why don't you do tea or other
That's a good
variables?
one.
Yeah,
Okay. The most underrated brew gear, according to you.
French press.
And something that you have changed your mind about in the last year.
I used to think that sometimes you can hire good people and they will come and that's it, free away your bandwidth. But more and more, I realize no matter how experienced they are,
Yeah.
senior, junior, you need to train people for like 6 to 9 months into how you want them to be. And that is right expectation setting. And then they can really, really scale things. But
Hmm.
expecting that, okay, day one, someone will come and this is it, I can go off, fly off and do bigger projects or thinking. I think
Hmm.
sometimes that's the hard truth. I had to kind
Hmm.
of come to realize that, you know what, like it doesn't, it's a 6 to 9 month process post someone coming on board to really, really for them to fly off on their own.
And if Blue Owl were a coffee type, what would it be?
Sorry, I didn't get that. What's your
If
question?
Blue Owl were a coffee type, what would it be? A
If I,
cappuccino? If
yeah,
your company were a coffee type?
sleepy owl.
Yes, sorry, Sleepy Owl were a coffee type, what would it be?
I think iced Americano.
Iced Americano. All right.
Yeah.
Ajay, thank you so much. Thank you for taking the time. Thank you for sharing your story. Thank you for taking through your journey. We've learned a lot. I think it's very inspiring, and all the best to you, all the best to Sleepy Owl, and we look forward to hearing more from you and your company.
Thank you. And everyone, please do try Sleepy Owl if you haven't. E-commerce, quick commerce, retail stores if you're in Delhi, Punjab, or Bombay. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Anand. Thanks everyone in CI, and thank you to the audience as well. Like I said, this is a weekly format. It happens every Thursday, from at 5 o'clock, and it's got everything to do with startups. Thanks. Thanks,
Thank
Ajay.
thank you.